Rick, is that you?
Mom! Mommy! Help!
A volatile is not just a monster, it's a symbol of fear in the world of Dying Light, and the creature we see today wasn't always meant to look or behave this way. In fact, the volatiles went through multiple changes and radical transformations throughout the franchise's history. And in this video, we'll talk about the evolution of the volatiles from the earliest concept art and prototype design to their terrifying reinvention in Dying Light the Beast. But before we look into those evolutions, I think we should first understand one important thing. How are volatiles actually created? Now, according to the Dying Light lore, the process of a human turning into a volatile happens in stages. Firstly, a human gets infected, and during the stage, the infection can be reversed by going out during the day or using the UV light. But let's say if that person doesn't get enough UV light or spends most of its time in the dark, then in that case, the person will eventually turn into a viral, and now if that viral spends more time in the darkness, then it will eventually turn into a volatile. But then what about the volatile nest? Since the volatiles can't reproduce, how are the nests even made? Well, the answer lies in Dying Light the Following DLC during the side quest Ascend Over Flesh, where we learn about Sabbath, a villager from the countryside that falls inside an active volatile hive, only to be later found by Kyle Crane as half volatile, half human. Yes, when Sabbath fell inside the hive, the volatiles dragged him and trapped him in this nest, stopping him from moving or leaving the hive. But when Kyle Crane discovered him in this state, Sabbath was pleading for mercy as he wanted Crane to kill him to free him from this curse. By the way, the reason why Sabbath was still conscious and was shouting "it burns" was because of a hole in the cave which caused a beam of sunlight hitting directly on Sabbath, so this is why he kept saying "have mercy, it burns." By the way, the same thing was again mentioned in Dying Light the Beast during the side quest For Your Mind Only, where you meet Rick, who just like Sabbath was turning into a volatile. The only difference is that in his case, he was not dragged by them, instead Rick went inside the hive trying to control the infected with his mind. Now the reason why he could do that was because he was part of a group called Exiles, who just like the mother had sentient volatile abilities. Which is why Rick went inside the hive to hopefully control all of the infected, but instead of controlling them, the infected started controlling Rick's mind, trapping him in this cocoon and turning him into this entity that looked like the early stages of a volatile. And my friend, just like Sabbath, he also wanted mercy.
Rick, talk to me. How'd this happen?
I heard their thoughts. Told them what to do.
Then we told him what to do, and he came to us. We gave him what he desired.
Mercy.
So now that you know how one becomes a volatile, let's now talk about the first ever design of the volatile that we saw back in E3 2013, when Dying Light was officially announced with a CGI trailer. Now this trailer actually had many great moments, but the most iconic was the scene inside the sewer. Now right before this scene, you actually get a closer look at the volatiles, which my friends, if you compare with the retail version, look almost exactly the same. And the only difference I could find are the bones sticking out of the shoulders. But then the same day after the CGI trailer, something happened. Techland actually released a press kit with few images, giving us the first look of the game, and if you look properly, in one of the images you actually have a picture of a volatile which looks nothing like the volatiles we have today. In fact, it's very different from what they showed in the CGI trailer. Plus, since it's one of the first screenshots that was published for this game, it's believed to be the earliest concept art for the volatiles, or probably a variant of a volatile which is still going through its transformation. I mean, just have a look at this volatile. It has no split jaw, which is literally common in all volatiles. Plus this one is more muscular and has completely different face structure. In fact, it appears that this one has no sores on them. Now if you don't know what the sores are on a volatile, then let me tell you that this is actually the main reason which causes them to actually burn after being exposed to the UV light. So just because this variant has no sores, it's possible that it was able to go out during the daytime, making him a more dangerous threat than a regular volatile. Now a few months after this, in August of 2013, we actually got a 12-minute gameplay giving us the first look at the chase during the night. And if you've seen this gameplay, then you would have seen that we actually saw the volatile in full action, which again, if you ask me, looked a bit different from what we saw in the cinematic trailer. Like the bones on the shoulder were missing here, and another change I noticed was the color of the skin which looked much darker than the reddish pink color of the retail Volatiles. So yeah, the final version of the Volatiles in Dying Light 1 looked like this. And honestly, the design here made so much sense because the red skin here simply means that the Volatile has just recently transformed. And that happened mostly because his skin started peeling off, which is why you can see the muscles, the veins, and the red blood so clearly. But then in 2016, Techland announced Dying Light the following, and this introduced a new variant of a volatile called the Alpha Volatile. This one is a much bigger and a stronger version of the volatile with a bigger body frame and tiny bones sticking out of the head, shoulder, and hands. In fact, this one had bigger and sharper teeth, plus visually it looked more bluish, which explains that the blood that was visible in the original volatile that made him look red is now starting to lose oxygen and the body has started to decompose. Now other than that, there's actually a good reason why these were called Alpha Volatiles. Like firstly, they were faster, stronger, more resistant to the attacks, plus they could pounce you from a huge distance and even spit at you. And the most dangerous skill was them being able to see the player even with the camouflage on. So yeah, Techland seriously nailed the first two evolution of the Volatiles. But hold on, did you guys know that Techland actually had more designs for the Volatiles that actually got eventually cancelled? Yes, here are 4 volatile designs that never made it to the final game. Now let's come back to the following DLC that also introduced another being that was half human, half volatile. They were basically called the Sentient Volatiles, and in the following DLC, the mother was one of them. Now Sentient Volatile is basically human during the day, but when the night comes, it loses itself to the virus, and doesn't matter who comes in their way, they will rip them to shreds.
In the dark, with cruel passion, I ripped my own children to pieces.
A Sentient Volatile can attack like a volatile with its jaw, hands, and acid throw, but what actually makes them more dangerous are the other abilities like mind control, telepathic communication, psychic attacks, and other superhuman abilities that exceed way beyond any infected in the game. Now, do you actually know how one becomes a Sentient Volatile? Well, in the following DLC, they were these vials made by Dr. Frank Bennett, who also is the father of Olivia from Dying Light the Beast.
One was called Blue Mist, and it worked like a sedative.
I think I remember that from back in Haran. There was this cult there that the infected wouldn't attack, and turned out they were using some kind of military-grade gas.
I discovered the identity of the scientist who did that initial research. It was my father.
What?
He was in Haran, right at the start of the outbreak.
Yeah, so was I.
I know. You're kind of famous.
So yeah, the vial he created was supposed to be used as a mist, which was the blue mist that basically sedates the infected, making them ignore the humans completely. But if a human inhales these gases for a long time or directly consumes it, then that person will eventually turn into a monster, also known as the Sentient Volatile. Now moving forward, after this in 2018, during the E3 event, Techland announced Dying Light 2, which as we all know over the years got delayed multiple times, but when it released, the game was set 20 years after the first game with a new variant of the Haran virus in action. Which simply means that over the years, the Volatile had again evolved, and this time they looked like this, where over the years the skin on their body had hardened into an armor, making them look much bulkier than the original Volatiles. But then it also makes them more resistant to our attacks, and when the community was actually recovering from this evolution, Techland decided to announce a new volatile called the Tyrant. A much more bigger and bulkier version of the Volatiles, and visually they look almost as same but with a few differences. Firstly, they got red glowing spores that actually is visible all over their body, and the tank-like structure actually makes the Tyrant more durable and resistant to various attacks. In fact, the Tyrant are special because other than having all the abilities of a normal volatile, the Tyrant also has some new move of itself, and their attacks are more deadlier, faster, and more accurate. Also, because they are tyrants, they can also call for help from other infected like virals and volatiles. So yeah, Techland surely created the most powerful version of the volatiles. But did you guys know that they actually had a completely different design for the volatiles back in E3 2018? I mean, what you're looking at right now are two different volatile designs that nowadays is referred to as E3 cut content. And the Outcast project, previously known as the E3 Definitive Mod, are actually restoring these volatiles for their project. So here's the early concept art for the volatiles from Dying Light 2, showing more than just two variants. I mean, just look at it. The face structure, the bones sticking out of the body, and the skin all looked way different than the final version of the volatiles from Dying Light 2. Which is why a few years later with Dying Light the Beast, the volatile designs were changed again. And this time, the skins were not as rock hard as Dying Light 2 volatiles. Even though their skin looked grey, you could actually see a lot of the flesh with exposed wounds and blood. In fact, the bones sticking out of the body also had a new design, and that goes for both the front and the back bones. The volatiles in the beast are actually fast and do a lot of damage with their claws. And no, they're not as strong as the Tyrant, but they are more scary looking and tougher than Dying Light 2 volatiles. But I guess Techland wasn't done with the evolution here, so they recently decided to add an alpha volatile in Dying Light the Beast, which my god looks so scary because of its burnt skin, and that actually makes them almost invisible during the night. The body of the alpha volatile is much larger than the regular volatile, but this one is special. Not only is this stronger than any volatile out there, it also has a glowing chest, eyes, mouth and back, making them look like a creature from hell. But again, what makes them the better evolution among all the volatiles is because the alpha volatile can actually track the player's scent, and your UV light is basically useless against this beast. And also, according to Techland, the alpha volatile is the most intelligent volatile in the history of Dying Light. So yeah, this volatile is both smart and dangerous. But then there's also another volatile in the game that is actually an abomination. The creature here is made by the antagonist of the game, and I'm here talking about the Chimera variant of the volatile, also known as the Wraith Chimera. Now if you consider this a volatile, it easily becomes the most powerful variant of the volatiles. I mean, this is the first volatile that can actually go invisible, and only the UV light can expose its location. Plus, this volatile is highly resistant to almost all types of attacks, and to be very honest with you, this volatile looks inspired by the Predator. I mean, I say that because not only does it go invisible like the Predator, but it also makes the same sound as a Predator would make. In fact, this evolved version of the volatile has more sharp pointed bones around its body. The one in the back almost reminds me of the Night Hunter. I mean, it's a completely new design with a different face structure, jaws, eyes, and even the ribcage area is different. Plus, if you look properly, the whole body is now only covered by muscles, as the skin has peeled away just like every other Chimera in this game. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Techland has seriously nailed the design with this Chimera variant. So yeah, that was the complete evolution of the volatiles from the Dying Light universe. We actually talked about the early concept design to the terrifying mutations, and each time the virus has evolved, the volatile has evolved too. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to Wbkingpin Teo and CDFilms for helping me with the 3D models and renders that you saw in this video. So huge thanks to them, and now let me know in the comments what you guys think about the evolution, and make sure to mention which volatile version scared you the most. Until then, take care and expect more videos like these, and I will see you guys in the next one.